Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing Live Show number 138. With me, Robert's coming into the show, but with me, just in time, is the amicable, humble, and very positive, supportive role in our organizational group of people, Mr. Edward StOnge with Flip2, who is a true supportive role and moral compass to us all. And also with us,
we have very low standards.
Yes, we don't even have a standard. It's more like a placard. And with us also is Mr. Tim Peter with Tim Peter and Associates, and arriving at the nick of time, as always, Mr. Robert Cole with Rock Cheetah. Gentlemen, thank you. Now, fingers crossed, Mr. Dan Waxman is supposed to be joining us. Now,
sure.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like,
it is 4 o'clock in the morning where he is. So
I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning my time.
Yeah, and he has more of a reason. He has that wicked cool sunrise over the water in Waikiki, you know?
Right. Sure, that's true.
Actually, that's a sunset, Lauren, isn't it, on Waikiki? I don't know.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, sunset. You're right.
They face west, right?
Dark. He sleeps in the dark. You're right. Yeah, it's the wrong side of the island. Thank you for Thank you, Holly, for being here, even though she's not here right now. Yes, I fact checker. So he has to join later into the show. Normally we have our guest host at the beginning, but because of the time lapse being in Hawaii, that we're taking for whatever we can get him today.
So this wasn't on Robert's topic, but since we're talking about time zones, this week something major happened for the state of Florida, which potentially could have some interesting repercussions even to this show. Which is the governor signed the bill that Florida wants to stay permanently on daylight savings time.
Wow.
Yeah, which means quite a bit of impact. Seeing as
rampant confusion. Yes,
it'll impact the entire state of Florida plus the 120 plus million people who visited.
Plus all the people in Florida have standing conference calls with every week.
Yes.
Because I lived in Arizona for years, which does not change its clocks. And my company was headquartered in San Francisco, and I had team members in Indiana and Orlando, as well as Phoenix. And every time that clocks changed, it took us about a week and a half to 2 weeks to sort out when the meetings were, because everything got overlapped and stuff, because everybody else changed and not us. That's always fun.
I already have difficulties between Shanghai or Singapore and then going over to London, and I'm constantly messing things up. Even yesterday, I thought I had a 3 o'clock call with somebody in Mountain Time, which was 1 o'clock, and I was 2 hours off because I inverted the thought process. It's just
sure. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
The worst part is I was in Cedar Rapids, Iowa this week, and I kept making the mistake of whether I was on Central Time or East Coast Time. So,
well, if you want to hear the crazy thing, the initial
you'd think
bill,
it'd be easy.
The initial bill that was presented to the House was a bit more radical. It not only wanted to stay on daylight saving time, but also wanted to make Florida a single time zone state. Which would have meant...
Is the Panhandle? Is there the
last part of the Panhandle?
Panhandle is central, and so that would have had massive impact for people who lived on the Florida border in the Panhandle. The time, you're not talking about like an hour difference now. You're talking 2 hour difference. Yeah. So I don't know if that part made it through, but now it's going to go up to the federal government, and if they approve it, we had our last time change.
Wow.
I'm not sad about it.
No, actually, there's a study. The reason I'm not going to be able to find this, but there's a study somewhere that shows that it essentially costs a lot of money every time the clocks change,
and a lot of lives.
Really.
The day after time changes are the peaky days on car accidents, on heart attacks, on a few other.
Only in the spring though, when the clocks
lose time.
Yeah, when you lose an hour. I don't know if they've done research if they'd lower on the other, because that's a crazy thing. There's really no reason for it too, because they did it for crops and farmers, and it wasn't based on really any thorough research. And
the only people who fought it in Florida were certain people from like the school system, just because of how dark it will be at certain points. And,
right.
I get that. But I mean, here's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Whatever time of year it is, the kids, at least in my neighborhood, they're out at the bus super early.
Yeah,
and it is dark.
Yeah.
And you can't let your kids out. It's not like where Tim lives, where it's safe in New Jersey. If I let my kids out, they actually stand a pretty good chance of being mauled by a bear.
Actually, what's really funny about that, Ed, is the part of New Jersey I live in, the odds are probably higher here of being mauled by a bear than anywhere else in the state.
Probably.
Yeah. when I first moved here, sorry, this is a bizarre tangent, but when I first moved here, I saw a bear walking down the middle of the road. And being a guy who lived in Newark, New Jersey, and then Phoenix, Arizona, and Chicago, I had no frame of reference for this. So I did what you would do, and I called the police, right?
Yep.
And I said, so there's a bear walking down Fairmont Road, and the cop went, yeah, they do that. Thank you. I was like, so what should I do? He said, don't piss it off.
Yeah.
It's sage advice.
That was very, very good.
Yes, we live in a bear neighborhood, which what that means is at any point in the day, if you're walking through our neighborhood, you will see bear just like lounging out on people's driveways. And we see I grew up in the woods of New Hampshire and never saw the amount of wildlife I see living 10 minutes outside of Orlando.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Swamp critters.
Bear, though, who would have thought? I expected,
alligators. Yeah.
Never seen an alligator in the wild.
Flamingos.
Oh, we have a problem with turkeys.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And ironically, they got really aggressive right after Thanksgiving. They weren't a problem in the neighborhood. They were laying low leading up to Thanksgiving. But man, if you look at our community page on the turkey problems, they really lit up after Thanksgiving. And I think it's just because they were cocky. We made it.
That's terrible. I will tell you, I saw something I've never seen before, and I'm going to make this somewhat travel related. Watch this segue.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you.
So I looked outside the other day and saw, for the first time in my life, I've never seen one in the wild, a pheasant. And they're big. I didn't realize how large they were. They're a lot bigger than I thought they were. And it turns out that this blew my mind. There is a farm in New Jersey that's about 20 minutes from my house that raises and releases about 50,000 pheasants every year to draw in hunters from out of state. It is actually a tourism thing for the state of New Jersey. And I don't know how, and they've been doing it since 1923. I looked all this up online because I was like, where in the world did that come from? And it turns out it came from 20 minutes away. And how it is that they release about 50,000 pheasants a year. And it's the first time in my life I've ever seen one. And I've lived in this house for 16 years. I was just boggled. But yeah, but it is a tourism thing. It is actually to bring in people who want to hunt pheasant and things like that. We have a brief pheasant season every year in New Jersey. So if you are a pheasant hunter, and interested in tourism, come on down
Tim's got a room on Airbnb.
I was going to say, come on down to the Tim Peter Airbnb, and I yield the crap out of that, man. Let me tell you.
It's really cheap off season.
Exactly. But boy, the peak, you're going to pay. So we have our special pheasant under glass package.
Yeah. For the one pheasant that was in the market,
right, we just put them under glass, and you can come look at them.
Tim serves you in complete camo attire, so
well,
or orange vest.
This is my version of camo.
Yeah.
So I blend in with the other preppy people.
So you guys are guys who enjoy going and seeing new hotels and stuff, right?
Sure.
So I got to go to a hotel yesterday that only you would appreciate what I appreciated about this hotel. So if all of you don't know, there is now a Hard Rock Hotel in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Okay.
And it was built where the old, it's not Sahara, but it's that type of Desert Inn.
Oh, sure.
Okay. So the Desert Inn, which is known because at one point it was ranked the dirtiest hotel in the United States.
Right.
I will tell you, walking through what they did with this hotel, the amount of care and detail, you would first of all think the hotel was a complete new build. There's not a single, I couldn't find a single flaw in anything, which is just really odd.
Wait. Actually, we can quote that Mr. Edward StOnge, the man with the white glove, could not find something wrong with what they did.
I mean, understand, I had a hard time when Shingle Creek opened in Orlando. I had a hard time walking through that hotel because the fit and finish issues in that hotel were considerable. Like you could slide your hand under columns. The gaps were so big. And
the worst part is they were load bearing.
But I will say,
slide your hand under, you just couldn't get it out afterwards.
It's the nuance of care, so you think, knowing that this is an old hotel that got gutted and rebuilt, the part that really got me was the quality of the windows in the rooms. So when you looked at the windows, first of all, they were about that thick. And the sliding doors, when you shut them, you couldn't hear the ocean.
Wow.
Oh, wow, that's great.
That's how well built this place is. It's stunning.
Wow,
that's awesome.
Probably, like, if this hotel was in South Beach, $2,000 a night.
Jeez.
Right.
Yeah. In Daytona.
59.88.
Yeah. No, I mean, but that's the thing. Like, this group has kind of a vision, I think, for changing what Daytona is, and it's just really interesting. So they also own the new Delta in Daytona.
Oh, sure.
And same idea. They renovated, and I guess they're going to do 3 or 4 more properties. But it was a $40 million renovation on a 200-room property.
Wow. That's fantastic.
200,000 a key.
So there was
better get $200 a key.
So there was a news article in Travel Weekly. I want to say it's the latest Smith travel data, and I think this is probably worth talking about because the article was posted, and it relates to what you're talking about. The article was posted in a really positive way, and I don't know that it should be. They were talking about the fact of, let me restate that. I don't know that it's all good. They were talking about the fact that, according to Smith Travel, over the last decade, we've seen 17% growth in room inventory globally. So there's now about 17 million rooms, up from about 14.5 million rooms 10 years ago. And obviously
50% of that's New York, right?
Well, and this is actually why I don't know that this is great news. Like, clearly, when people are building and people are opening new properties and the like, that is a sign that the industry is somewhat healthy. Mm-hmm. It is also true that inventory is a lagging indicator, right? Inventory keeps coming into market past the point where it's a good idea to have inventory come into the market.
You have a point of no return. Right. Sorry, I don't care what the economic status is. I got to open this hotel.
All the groups sharing that one HVS feasibility study going, hey, let's go.
Right. And, and that's kind of my question. That's kind of the question I'm thinking about is, and clearly, as long as we go into a normal downturn, whenever the next downturn is, this will not be global the way it was.
Well, I thought we were already done. It's come back today. It went down like 9% this week.
Yeah, but my whole question is, when are we going to hit that point of no return? And have we already in many markets? And where, is this something people should be watching? Well, Miami's one. New York is one. I'm not sure DC isn't one.
DC, the only thing I'll say about DC is the overall quality of living in that city has changed so dramatically to the positive. Yeah. Like, I think that is going to continue to be a draw. I think there'll be like, if you remember, Houston exploded when the last financial crisis hit because they had the fundamentals in place. I honestly think DC is in that type of position where they could be a Houston in the next pullback.
Well, don't forget, though, Houston got hit hard a few years later with the oil industry stuff, right?
Yeah,
when the oil industry went down a lot, Houston got hit
very,
very hard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm kind of throwing this out as a question. Where are we timing-wise in the cycle? Are we getting too near the peak? Are we past the peak? I mean, what do you guys think?
We're plateaued. We've been plateaued for 2 years. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at it. Actually, this first quarter, I was just looking at some of the numbers. It's actually ticking up a little bit. If you look at the 52-week moving average, it's actually going up a little bit. But yeah, you've just got a couple. Yeah, basically occupancy is flat because you've got about 2%-ish supply growth. You got about 2%-ish demand growth, and on the ADR side, yeah, it's about 3%, something like that, which is good. It's sustaining, but yeah, it's not going to be hockey sticking, up anywhere. And it's been kind of like that for.
But let's also not forget that this type of growth is actually good.
It is
like slow transactional growth, because that's when bars get set and become the new floor.
Yeah, that's right. That's fair.
But when you're doing this.
Yeah.
There's never been a new floor. It's just you got new ceilings, and the ceilings are much higher, but the floor is where it always was.
Is where it always
where
was.
Years like this, where fundamentally things have kind of chilled out, but there's still, an okay amount of growth, which means if you're doing good business, you probably are capturing a good amount of growth, right? Because if you're competitive inside your market, you can capture a larger share. Yeah, so I don't want to poo-poo on the fact that things have chilled a little because they haven't pulled back.
Yeah, but it's hard to get increased growth too, because you just start running into kind of structural limits.
Although
once nationally occupancy is kind of up to 70-some%ish, you just start getting these kind of structural, hey, people aren't going to those resorts midweek, and they aren't necessarily
right.
And again, cities have been doing better, much better on weekends than weekdays. I mean, it used to be fire a cannon off on Friday and Saturday nights in a place like
downtown Dallas. Downtown Dallas used to be like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and now they're coming back, and those are now some of their peak nights. So.
Yep. I mean, interesting though. Florida grew a lot.
So, Lauren, you were going to say
last year.
I was going to say real quickly that from conversations I've had over the past couple of days, some interesting insights as to growth in the hospitality sector in particular is that the laws of diminished return, people are getting smarter, and they're not upsetting the apple cart. There's not this dramatic rush to market on putting things into the pipe and things like this, that people are enjoying this, as you said, the new floor that has been established from this.
Hopefully new floor.
But as long as something dramatic doesn't happen, that a dramatic decrease in an opportunity and demand, or an incredible somebody plays their hand and does a massive infusion into a market. There are some markets like Miami and so forth that didn't heed that warning, and they're putting.
Well, Miami's got a bigger problem because they haven't just been overbuilt in inventory for hotels. The residential skyscraper inventory has also and the money's dried up.
Yep,
China's not pouring into the market. And South America is not pouring into the market like it was, but you have all these skyscrapers that are past the point of no return. Like they have to finish them. So what do you think that's going to be? It's going to become rental housing,
but it has to collapse before they can realign the value of it.
That Porsche Tower is going to be one of the coolest Airbnbs you can do in Miami.
Okay, but it sounds
bring
like
your rental car.
But it sounds like the consensus is guardedly optimistic, and maybe the hospitality industry has learned the lessons of the past this time around to some degree.
Yeah, there's still.
All right,
I mean, we have to make
leaves that full of holes.
That take good segments of information from us and just completely erode them, Tim. I mean, come on.
Greed will, because again, it winds up being this lagging, and everybody's like, hey, this is great. Here's the thing. Everything's going good. We've got positive consumer sentiment. Everything's build. And the lead time on these hotels is generally 24 months-ish. I mean, could be a little bit slow, but by the time you wind up going, it's a little too late. You just topped off.
Good thing we had a giant loan and no money down on that property.
The beauty of leverage.
All
right, so
I have to bow out. I actually have to leave, and I apologize.
Safe travels.
Thank you. I got to go catch my flight and everything else like this. I'm in New York, just in case you haven't noticed the background again.
You're coming for a Mets game, clearly.
Well, no, this is just actually a Florida flag thing. And
I was just being funny because of the red and orange, and the blue and orange, and I'm a Mets fan.
Blue and orange. So. Yeah, well, I'm in Yankee country right now because everybody's like, the Mets play first because they're not capable. Anyway, there's a lot of Yankee.
As a lifelong Mets fan, trust me, I've heard everything you can possibly imagine.
I'm like, wow, you guys don't like each other, do you?
Is this you talking about soccer?
Yes, that's it.
Yes, that's right, Ed. That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's It's the Major League Soccer team, the Mets.
We are on YouTube. This is a housekeeping thing. We are on YouTube, so we can invite those who want to go through the chat to do this. Dan has a link that I gave him Stewart's so that he can join in when it comes time. I just resent him a reminder of that fact. So when he comes in or whatever, he'll come in as a presenter. But if not, he might come through the chat window as well. You can turn him on because we're running this on YouTube. And I sent it over to, as you've seen, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. So we're back to being out there, so people are aware of the control. So anyway, gentlemen,
travel safe.
Thank you. We'll talk to you. Thank you so much for carrying it. Thank you.
Great weekend, Lauren.
Bye.
Let's see if we stay on the air.
We are.
Hey.
Or we will find out. We'll find out an hour later that we spent an hour talking to just each other.
Right, exactly.
138 shows in, Lauren's figured out how the technology works.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair to Lauren, it's not 138 shows on this platform, right? It's only about 20 shows a platform, the way we've been doing this.
I wanted to get your guys' input because I'm starting to try to take a poll on people's own care of responsibility of their own private info. So did either of you pull down what Facebook knows about you?
Yep.
Robert? And
yes, I did.
Was there anything in there that surprised you?
Not especially.
It's everything.
Oh, you're an Android user. That's right.
No, I'm an iOS user.
No, I'm talking about Robert, the one who said everything.
Yeah.
I pulled it down, and honestly, I looked at it and felt pretty good, that I haven't been duped.
Yeah.
Me too.
They didn't have anything on me that I didn't do through the platform. And
they had his whole DNA sequence, the whole thing, because he had given it to them. So
yeah, why not? No, but I mean, the reason I asked that is, first of all, I think Google's going to have some huge fallout from this because it does appear that Android users are the ones who have been the most shocked by what Facebook had on them, because I guess in some versions of Android, it was giving Facebook all text message history that the phone had.
Yeah.
And all call log and everything. And
but I want to be fair about this, right? I want to be really fair about this. What is extraordinary to me. So first of all, a baseline, right? It's extraordinary to me that anyone is allowed to have access to that data without being explicit about the data they're collecting in a way that isn't just, hey, here's boilerplate. We can do anything we want. Click here if you want to proceed. So that's the first part.
Trust us.
The second part is it's astonishing to me how much of a beating Facebook is taking over this and how much of a beating Google is not taking over this, right? Because clearly Facebook did this. But at the same time, Android allowed it, right? Whereas iOS did not. And I'm not trying to say, yay on Apple. I'm trying to say that.
But here's the interesting part. We talked about this last week, which is Facebook made a huge mistake. They didn't get control of the storyline.
Well, sure.
So they got dragged through. But I think at the point you get to the Google conversation, it's too technical for the public. The media doesn't want to report on it because then they have to explain some pretty complex thing.
Yeah.
So Google's protected by the complexity in this. But I guarantee you Google will end up having to go in front of the House and all of that answer some pretty uncomfortable questions about their lack of protection built into their operating systems. And the only reason Google has this problem is because Apple. Because Apple has all these protections that they've been beaten by consumers for. But quite honestly, now
I hear what you're saying. I think there's another piece to this, and I want to give full credit when I
two different models.
Right, exactly.
Two different business models.
and this is so I agree with these guys. But I'm going to semi-quote them at length. I'm going to paraphrase them at length, but I didn't come to this independently. They were talking about this. I'm like, yeah, that's spot on to me. I've talked about stratechery before this podcast, really good stuff. Yeah. They made a great argument about Facebook's big mistake is they didn't understand what business they were in for a long time. Yep. They wanted to be a platform, not an advertiser, not an advertising provider, right?
Media company, yeah.
A media company, right. And so as an advertising company, there's no way you give away this data. There is no way you make this data available. Google does not, and they make their money in advertising, right? Mm-hmm. Apple does not because they sell hardware, right? Like they know they know what they are. Facebook was trying to be a platform, and they were trading the data they did have to get access to the data they did not have, right? And that was probably a mistake. If they had committed full force to advertising all along, they never give this data away, and none of this is a problem.
Right.
And the things that giving this data away made this data
much further down the road. It's a much further down the road problem. But yes, I mean, I still think, we're in for, this may be the start of, a series of ahas that people have that you shouldn't just blindly say yes to things, and when a pop-up comes up, don't just click OK.
And when your friends invite you to play some random game, maybe you say no.
Yeah. Or if you really are curious about what your Irish last name should be, maybe don't do it on Facebook, right? Like pick up a book.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the problem though is really it's the trusting of the platforms, right? Because in many cases, I mean, people will turn on, and I've experimented a lot on Android. I mean, if you turn on your location history and all that stuff and give it openly to Google, it starts figuring out your patterns of travel, and all of a sudden 20 minutes before you normally go to a movie on a Tuesday night, it starts giving you traffic. And, you start looking at this stuff and go, it's that creepy land, right? It's either so incredibly cool and helpful and anticipatory and personalized, or it's like, what the hell are they doing? And I think it really comes down to the situation, right? I mean, if it's helping you as an individual, it's great. And if it's not, it's completely evil. And that's where everything's going to get very
and where Facebook
interesting, right?
And yes, exactly. But where Facebook went very wrong on this, and very, very wrong. And this is, I'm going to make my quick argument for diversity for a second, right? Mm-hmm. Because where Facebook went terribly wrong in this one was not the data that you said was okay for people to access about you and what you did. It was the data about your friends, that your friends had no voice in saying. And again, this comes from the stratechery guys, but I think this is a point well made. One of the guys on stratechery is openly gay. Only recently did he, become public with that. And there are parts of the world where various actions that you take, or various, who you are, can get you arrested, can get you killed, right?
Right.
I don't think that's dramatic to say that. And if you, as an individual, if you have not been consulted on, am I okay with my data being released? Because I'm the friend with somebody who was saying it was okay for their data to be released. That's an enormous, enormous problem.
Now,
and
especially when
Facebook should have been there in the room. Wait a second, as somebody who's in a minority or a traditionally oppressed people or something like that, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, especially when it's check-ins, though.
That was able to be done was a while ago. Like, it's been a while since you've been able to, unless the person
has it down in 2015, though.
That's a while ago. It's 2018. That's 3 years ago. Let's talk about percentage of the life that Facebook has had. I mean, you're talking about a large percentage of their life. They've corrected that issue.
Well, true, but the information that 30%. The information that was released all that information that was released and those profiles that were developed, a lot of that core stuff doesn't change either. I mean, you've been the cat's out of the bag. You've been categorized, and you are off in the little psychographic silo there, which probably won't change a lot. Yeah, which is a tough situation.
Well, especially depending on how religious.
But I mean, your religious beliefs, your sexual orientation, potentially with political parties, things like that. Your locations,
your check-ins. That was the thing, and I mentioned it last week on that. The value wheel, whatever it was that Groupon did. I mean, they checked all the boxes, right? And you just went, holy crap, because it was all of your friends' likes. I can't remember I don't think it had their birth date. I think it kind of drew the line there, but all of their likes, all their check-ins that were shared with you. And that's where I think the problem was. Right. If it was these are things that they had shared publicly, then it's kind of on them. But they shared it to a closed group, and then now they are repurposing it. And I think that's where they wind up getting into some legal deep
I'll
waters.
I'll be honest, and you guys, I know you think I'm crazy with a tinfoil hat, but if you haven't noticed, I don't allow anyone to post to my timeline without me moderating.
No, that's not crazy.
And
I do, but I don't think that's. I don't think crazy for doing that. I think there's a valid argument to be made.
Well, I have a hybrid Facebook.
Yeah,
I have friends that I've known my whole life, and then I have professional friends that know me in my industry.
They have a moderate setting now too, though.
I've had it when they first came out.
It was.
Yeah.
Well, it used to be like a binary on/off. Now I think there's a moderate where you get a notification, then you can approve it to go on.
Yeah, that's
which
I
think is.
That's
which
how.
Is fine.
Like I get them every time the show kicks off because it's Robert Cole tagged you in a post. Deny.
Now the reason I'm doing that is to help. That's why we were getting the numbers of people. No,
I'm joking.
But it is a fair point. It is a very fair point. And I have a vaguely hybrid one. I will tell you, I do keep my worlds semi-segregated, like Facebook, and it is fully acknowledge that. LinkedIn, I will connect with anybody.
Oh yeah, me too.
Anybody. No,
really?
I mean, I vet them.
So you accept all of them? Yeah.
No, I don't accept all of them. I take a look at does this seem legit? But I pretty much
I have 2,000 ones.
Yeah, I'm well over 2,000. I have no idea. Yeah. Facebook, I have to know you in real life. Now, some of them are work friends.
For me, it's even beyond.
For me,
it's even beyond. I have to know you. I have to want to interact with you.
Well, that too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Ed's still working in the MySpace top 8 friends or whatever.
That's right, man.
Ed's not old enough to remember them.
Have you guys tried logging into MySpace, see if your account's still there?
I have not.
No.
I mean, I did 2 years ago, and it was still there, same username and password.
Oh yeah, well, Justin Timberlake invested in them, right? They got one of the. I don't know.
He needed a loss on his taxes.
He needed a loss, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, they're still out there. So
yeah, they're the music.
Yeah.
Until Apple was like, oh, let's pick on MySpace again. You know what? Let's just build that into Apple Music where you can connect artists.
Exactly. But I mean, I think I made this rant repeatedly last week, so I'm not going to beat this to death this week. But I think we are in a point where you have to be an educated customer. You have to know, Ed, you make a choice that is appropriate for you. Robert and I make choices that are appropriate for us. But we also weren't that surprised by what Facebook knew about us because we made educated choices. Are there risks in the choices that I have made? Yeah, there are. Right. I'm okay with them. I'm a middle-aged white male, who has a successful business, and you know what I mean? It's probably not going to break me. I'm not at risk. If I was somebody who, for whatever reason, didn't feel comfortable sharing parts of my life, I wouldn't do half the stuff that I do. No, and there's a lot I
that's
don't do.
Why.
I check in. And
go
ahead.
No, I was just going to say, this is why you won't find anything on social media before Tim met Tammy. What is that about? I think that's very, very suspicious, right? What was that hidden life he had?
Exactly. The internet didn't exist. That's true, by the way. The internet is true. The internet existed, but not the commercial internet.
It wasn't open.
Yeah. It wasn't open for business yet.
Yeah.
But actually, if you want to go down a weird tangent for 1 second, I had a Zen rip the bandaid moment off in my life. I was in a relationship before I met my wife. I lived with somebody. We broke up. I was a musician back in those days. I mean, this is the early 90s, right? By the way, I think we lost Robert.
I see him.
He's back. So I had one of the craziest 4-month periods of anybody's life ever. I had a major car accident, right? So because of that, my girlfriend at the time had to do a lot of driving me around because I didn't have the money to get a car because I was a musician, right? My life was kind of a mess.
An artist.
She threw me out, right? We broke up. She threw me out. My brother helped me move out. The day that we moved me out of my apartment, somebody broke into his car and stole everything I owned.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, records I worked on, photographs, my high school yearbooks, etc.
Oh.
And a week later, my appendix burst.
Oh my god.
So like I had like this garbage 4-month period. And the funny part is literally so much of what I owned got stolen and so many things that were attached to memories and stuff that literally I don't have a record of anything before a certain point. And it's something I'm okay with now, more or less. You know, there are things where I'm like, man, I really wish I had that photo, or I really wish I had that thing. But yeah, you won't see a lot of that because I don't have it. It doesn't exist. It's like I've got to give late, you know.
I've got to give Edward Snowden a quick call here. I'm going to check the witness protection program. What happened in that 4-month period? That sounds pretty plausible.
Why is there no record appendix burst before a specific date?
Well, to be very fair, you can absolutely go that route and go conspiracy theory, or you can go, 20-year-old musician who didn't have his, life together in any meaningful way whatsoever. But sure,
that was life. That was life.
Persona.
That was life, just kind of grinding you down to be in the position to appreciate the value that Tammy brought to your life.
Actually, full credit to my wife. But I'm going to take a little credit for myself too, because I didn't meet her for another year afterwards, by which point I'd gotten my head kind of straight. If she'd met me right after that, there's no way we'd be together today, because I was not what you'd call dating material then.
You were more hair than substance, I'm guessing.
He was a project. Yeah, you were a project.
Correct. But I fortunately, by the time I met her, acknowledged that I was a project. A year prior, I was the
first step in any recovery.
Right, exactly. A year prior, it was more like, man, everybody else in the world is wrong.
Well, to get back to the hotel side of it, yes. Yeah. Earlier, you were like a complete rebuild. And when you met Tammy, you were more like a renovation. So
right, exactly. The soft goods definitely needed updating. The meth labs
had been already kicked out of the hotel. And, it was ready to
There was no longer a reclamation project, right? It was just clean up the soft goods and put on some paint and stuff like that. Yeah, for sure. Anyway,
now,
we went way too far.
There's one last question on the Facebook thing though.
Yeah.
So how many people have gone and downloaded their whole archive, and where is it? It's sitting on their hard drive, it's on their cloud service or whatever.
Oh no, I posted it at timpeter.com/life history.
Yeah.
I
mean,
take a look at this.
At first, when I clicked to do the download and it said, check your email, I'm like, are they really going to email this? Like, no,
exactly.
No way. Like, they got to know better than that. And then it told you how to access. Yeah, but at first I'm like, no way are they going to email this? Because
can you imagine?
Wow. Oh my gosh.
But they did password encrypt it. Just the password's 1234.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the first 4 digits of your address.
Okay. And the last 4 digits of your social security.
Or birth date. Yeah.
Yeah. But no one has social security numbers. There's been no major breaches there.
Yeah, no, certainly not.
Yeah, exactly.
So they've been making some interesting moves that I'm happy about. So now apps that you don't actively use will automatically get removed from having access to your profile. That is a great piece of housekeeping.
Long overdue. Overdue.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not going to lie. Like, that even makes our life easier as an app that does end up on your profile, because there's nothing worse than we'll get a random email from someone going, "How did you get in my profile?" And it'd be like,
"That's like, yeah, you remember 6 months ago?" Yeah, exactly.
Like, what do you want me to tell you?
Well,
but
and there are.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, there are lots of processes. I mean, actually, just in the last day or so, I saw 2 that some of these groups, Huffington Post, right? I sent a funny little link off to my daughters and wife and that sort of thing. They clicked on it, and it was a Huffington Post article, right? Came up, it goes straight to load the app. And it's like, wait a second, it's just a web link sort of thing. It's like, how are they, how did they get into the identify that URL to go open the app, which I'm not, I've got to dig a little bit more into exactly how they got that updated.
Abusive marketing has just been taking a beating. Abusive marketing technique is just.
I would argue it hasn't taken enough of a beating, though.
No, but it's coming. More and more is coming.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to tell everybody: do not share a link from Huffington Post. Period. Ever.
You just did.
Stop it.
I do. I do this.
No, I didn't. Oh no, I did the one time, but now that I see what they're
broadcasting live, so you've just told everyone.
I have. Well, yes, the world. Thank you. Well, I think the viewership. Do they watch it multiple times? So I think so.
I know Roseanne likes to be impressive with their 18 million viewers, but we got to beat Roseanne.
Yeah, that's because everybody's watching this on their Tor browsers and everything like that. It's just not tracked.
Yeah, it's just not tracked.
but that was one, and then another one was Wi-Fi, because I've got a VPN, right? So I can go in and I'll go hop onto some public Wi-Fi. This public Wi-Fi, the little login process, you had to use Facebook. It was like a store, and I'm like, no. I'm not going to
can we talk about
that.
Can we talk about defeating the purpose of a VPN? By the way,
yeah.
I mean, here, use a VPN and be completely secure, but log in so that somebody can track it.
Yeah, log in. Yeah, exactly. So
now the one I'm conflicted about. I shouldn't say I didn't like. I think it's probably a good move for consumers in the long run. I think it's a bad move for advertisers, and I'm not sure that it's. I'm conflicted about this one. So Facebook also announced that they will no longer use data from Axiom and Experian and people along those lines.
And those Cordio, all those guys are all in that partner program. Yeah. That's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot of data.
The whole offline to online world meshing just got a big chasm in it.
Yeah. So. And, I mean, first of all, for as much as people bitch about Facebook and things like that, and they should, they really should also be bitching about the Axioms and the Experience of the world and things along those lines. At the same time, elements of that data, if it's sufficiently anonymized and sufficiently secure and things like that, is really useful to marketers, right? You can do really interesting things like lookalikes. You can do really interesting things like, customer segmenting based on attitudes and the like, assuming it's sufficiently anonymized. And I think that's where they've gone wrong. And so I credit Facebook for the concept. I'm concerned about the implications of it the concept hadn't been necessary in the first place, right? Does that make sense?
If the argument can be made on there's a way to do it well, it will be back. Facebook's not one to hurt themselves, right?
Oh,
but I think I'm guessing someone probably did an analysis and said, we can't feel great that this is not above reproach.
No, that's a good point.
And so they probably just went, okay, well, it's enough money to those companies that they'll find a way to get back onto the platform. And that means it's a different negotiation too, right? Instead of Facebook going to them and saying, hey, you're going to have to make these assurances and we're going to need some way to know it, and having the other company go,
right.
Instead, it's, oh, hey, by the way, because we know there's questionable aspects potentially to these areas, until you can address with a full independent audit that these things don't exist, it's off.
Yeah, and that's a smart take, Ed. That's a really smart take. I think that's exactly right.
Yeah, and that's actually how I took what they were doing, was really that. There's something there that they're uncomfortable with, that they probably felt no way to address it quickly with the players. So the answer is cut it off and make it their problem to fix it, and then it'll be back.
Well, you raise a great point. I hosted a webinar maybe a month and a half ago, for a site called Biznology, where I've been a blogger for forever. And they, the participant, the guy who was our expert for the webinar, talked a lot about how advertisers really have been funding a lot of the really terrible crap that goes on the internet. Because of lack of accountability, because of lack of insight, because of lack of transparency, etc. But you're exactly right. And if the advertising community really put their foot down more and said, okay, there's some things we're not cool with, then people would probably behave better. And that makes tons of sense that's what Facebook is doing in this case, to say, hey, we've got an economic cudgel to go beat these guys up with. Maybe they will behave themselves if we do. So that's
and I mean, smart. Like look at the huge outcry when first Apple made the move to really limit cross domain tracking. And then all the other browsers followed suit. My gosh, like, it's funny when you looked at who was crying, because it was just a bunch of wolves crying about how hard life is, that their super spammy approach to marketing was now completely illegitimized, and couldn't do anything. And that's one of the things I'm talking about when I say that abusive marketing is starting to really get reeled in on these platforms and these channels, and I mean, even GDPR. I'm not going to lie to you. I like what they're doing.
Sure.
And because and honestly, I hope the U.S. adopts it.
Which they likely will. I mean, if you look at something like canned spam, which has its flaws and things like that, but I mean, that grew out of regulations that. I have my view of this. I'm not the first one to come up with this by any stretch, but it's Europe first, Canada second, California third, and then the federal government, right? Like that's the timeline, right? So GDPR is probably going to make its way in some form, and a lot of countries are looking at GDPR-like regulations. So probably Canada or California next, and then the other one, and then eventually the feds will get around.
Well, and the nice thing about the European Union is they put teeth behind it.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I have a couple of small issues with it, but in the large, it's better for consumers than not. And as hotel marketers, right, we think about duty of care, and it amazes me the people who do marketing who have no sense of that conceptually
at all.
Right. Oh no. Yeah.
It's more, let's shake them upside down and see what they bought.
Yep. Yeah, but that also comes from a lot of the marketing services that serve this space. I was literally talking to Lauren about that this morning, because I caught wind of a marketing service getting asked a professional opinion, and they gave an incredibly unprofessional response that does nothing but erodes their credibility with their own customer.
Right.
And we encounter it a lot, where we hear the silliest things being said, and it's really easy to just poke a hole in, because you're like, oh, cool, go ask them where the data is.
Right.
Because there shouldn't be opinions.
Right.
Not on these things. Because there's data.
That's right.
But I think that's really it. I think everyone loses sight, and they think that the marketing aspect of travel is not guest experience, but it is. I mean, it really is. And
really is.
The better job you do, I mean, great. It's going to help you, but the worse you do, like you can hit points where it doesn't matter how good your staff is on site. You're destroying how someone feels about you before they even step foot in your city.
Right. Well, you've heard me say before my little metaphor, right? That content is king, customer experience is queen, and data is the crown jewels. And one of the points that I make about that is you need to protect that data like it's the crown jewels. You got to protect it like your business depends upon it, because guess what? It does. Right? I mean, you get that data released that people don't want released, and you're going to be in real big trouble. Or use that data in a way that's inappropriate. You're going to get in real big trouble, as we're seeing with Facebook right now. This should be an object lesson to folks.
Well, and now with the API economy sort of thing, with people just pull in information from wherever. There are a lot of companies that are so reliant on these third-party tech providers for a ton of really important actionable information that stuff's going to disappear, because yes, it's adding some level of convenience, but all of a sudden when you dig through, you go, wait a second, hang on, does that person really know where it's going? No, they don't. Do they care? No, because it's helping them. And again, that's the problem. It's all great till something goes wrong.
If you want a clever aspect of something we did is we tied certain functions of our platform to a requirement that if you want to use certain aspects of our platform, you have to implement a piece of our code to your privacy policy. Mm-hmm. So if you turn on certain aspects of our platform, it instantly amends your privacy policy to have the correct disclosures and permissions and stuff like that, because we didn't even want to trust that it would be done. So now it's literally, you put the code snippet on your privacy page. If you're inactive on this experience, there's nothing there. As soon as you turn on a campaign of a specific experience, boom, you are giving the right disclosures and doing the right thing. And you can't undo it. Like you can't
No, that's good. Yeah, because you get the trust waves, and a lot of people fill out their little privacy thing, and they get their little banner or sticker, and it's like, what did they check in there? They said nope.
Self-assessment. Self-assessment is garbage.
And I mean that's what happened in the Facebook thing, right? They gave data to Cambridge Analytica. That Cambridge Analytica said they got rid of the data, and they hadn't. I mean,
they didn't give the data to Cambridge Analytica. They gave it to someone who accessed it through.
You're right. You're
professor.
You're exactly right.
So Cambridge Analytica is going to be in far more legal trouble.
Oh yeah.
Facebook.
Absolutely.
Facebook, when you go through the details of this, Facebook's going to come out the other end without a fine.
Right.
Cambridge Analytica and this guy specifically who violated the platform's rules and then lied after to Facebook saying, we deleted it, it's gone. There's going to be prison for that.
I certainly hope so. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you're absolutely right. Absolutely. But Facebook's only defense right now, and this is to your earlier point, Ed. I mean, you made this point already, that this is as much PR and communication from a nightmare perspective. Facebook's only defense right now was, and this is never a good defense in a PR sense, technically it wasn't legal, and technically it was all covered by our terms of service, right? All of which is true, but you don't. But that's not a really good place to be.
And ask every Facebook employee to recite their terms of service. You work for the company, you should be able.
Shifting gears just a little bit. So if you're a hotel marketer, and I'm going to be honest, this is somewhat of a loaded question because I wrote a blog post about this earlier this week, but if you're a hotel marketer,
you write blog posts?
I do occasionally. Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna go read.
I don't know if you guys have heard. I really should bring that up once in a while.
On every topic, every Wikipedia topic has a blog post from
Tim Peters Cornell. He makes sure it's in the first 5 sentences of any conversation he has.
That was actually on the diploma.
Always be closing, fellas.
The requirement to graduate was the commitment to do that. It's actually a condition to get a diploma. So, not willfully doing that. I'm just living up to my obligation.
Right.
Oh. Okay. So all of this is very interesting. I mean, we could talk about it at length. Clearly we have, but if I'm a hotel marketer, what am I supposed to do about this? Like, what does it mean to me, and how should I change my behaviors, or what should I be doing different?
Trust your agency blindly. They'll be fine. Is that the right answer?
All right, thanks, everybody.
That's option A. Okay, so there may be an option B.
Right. So first,
could it be an option B?
It's interesting. I did a presentation in Myrtle Beach where this hadn't happened yet, but it's connected to a series of other things. So can spam exists, GDPR exists, even Facebook's own internal policies on like newsfeed access, Google's constant algorithmic changes to their search algorithms.
Their terms of service for analytics in terms of what data you can tie to what data.
Yep. All of this exists as a response to people trying to cheat in marketing.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. Right. So you need to look at your marketing with an ethical test. First thing you need to ask yourself.
What's a what?
How do you spell that?
How do you spell that?
I gotta look that one up.
So I'll give you the order of priority that Flip2 takes when designing experiences. 1, is it a win for the traveler?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Then 2, does it help the hotel towards its goals?
Yep. Yep.
Then 3, how commercially viable can you dial it into?
Yep.
Right.
That is how we design everything. And guess what? With all of these changes, we've had to make almost 0 fundamental changes to the way we do things. And actually, most of these changes have made our platform higher engaged and further reaching. Like, it's actually made our platform more valuable because it's cut out garbage.
Right.
And we've been left with, oh, hey, we exist.
Wait, Ed, I'm very confused. I'm sorry. So I just want to make sure I have this clear. You're taking care of the customer and it's working better? I'm not following. I'm breaking
a little bit of a rule. I'm not taking care of my customer.
No. I'm sorry.
I'm taking care of their customer.
Right.
Taking care of my customer.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But I actually put my customers above their needs, because if you do that, everybody wins.
Right.
Ed has become, Flip2 has now become really kind of like the Peace Corps, helping people help themselves. I think. Really
I think that's I think that is an excellent checklist. I think it makes a ton of sense, right? Because you're exactly right. We always talk about having somebody in the room whose bonus isn't based on moving forward.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, if your incentive is to do the thing, guess what's going to happen?
Well, and it's that focus on the customer and Chiat Day advertising, right? Outstanding. This is back in the day. They're now part of TWA, but back in the day they did all the Apple stuff and just amazing advertising. They took a very British approach to the structure of their company, and I can't remember the position. Because they had their traffic managers, their creatives, and all that stuff. But this one guy was the voice of the customer.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter. The CEO of whoever, the head of that office could say, no, we're going to do this. Everything's fine. He would go, wait,
Right.
That doesn't make sense. And basically they worked on it. It was like, if you are revealing, here's what we're doing and the detail of how we're doing it, are you happy with that as the customer?
Right.
Or you go, oh, yeah, that's great. Then they did it. And if this guy was not happy and did not report to anyone except really, and the guy had to be smart. He had to have the data and everything to back it up, not just opinion, but no, I've got some fact-based stuff. These are the indications and the probabilities that these guys are not going to like it. No. And they kind of did have the little debates. Hey, if it's 95%, that's still not good enough. These guys, that 5% could kill us, because again, you get this low frequency, high severity problem. That's
high impact. Yeah, for sure.
High impact, absolutely.
Yep. And that's
so all
for a hotel takeaway, hotel marketer takeaway, to make this, if it wasn't clear, everything you do, everything you're thinking about doing, start first with, how does this benefit my guest?
Right.
Then, how does this align with the goals of the hotel?
Absolutely right.
And by the way, did you notice I didn't say that your goals?
No, sure. Right.
The business, the business objectives, and hopefully those business objectives are clearly,
and hopefully they align with your individual goals.
Everybody in the organization.
Right. But if they don't,
a lot of these hotels don't have. But a lot of them, we've had that conversation. Why does that hotel exist? What are the objectives? And it's like, they run into a quagmire there. So they don't know their guest needs. They don't know their company's organizational needs. Mm-hmm. Okay, next, Ed.
But so those two. Those two is what I'm going to give a hotel. Start there, because here's the thing. First one, you're going to say no to most of the things you've been doing. Right. The second one, you're probably going to have to go and ask some hard questions, because I'm going to say most marketers have not been given the clear, why, what are the goals of the organization? Right. Why does the hotel exist? Why do people stay here? That's a fundamentally hard can of worms. But get past that can of worms and follow rule number 1. Guess what? You will not have the rug ripped out from underneath you on anything you're doing, because you're doing it right. Because then you're really not marketing, you're building relationships.
Well, that's exactly right.
Across channels.
And those relationships, if they aren't based on either the employee with their organization requiring a lawyer to justify your not getting fired or something like that, or as an organization having lawyers justify why you shouldn't be sued. You can streamline a lot of that stuff. And on that note, I've got to go do a whole bunch of work.
Enjoy Japan.
Yes.
One of those things where it sometimes happens here. It's the end of the year. Certain things have to get done before the end of the fiscal year. Japan's end of the Japanese fiscal year is March 31st. And damn it, they've got a 15-hour advantage on them. So I can't even go right up the deadline here on March 31st. I gotta be. It's those time zones we started off with. This could be.
Way to bring it back around, Robert.
Nice, Robert. Robert, if people want to find you next week, because obviously you're mired in end-of-year Japanese business, where can they find you?
Well, just look at my Facebook archive and you'll see it on, which is on timpeter.com, and you can figure it out. You can probably just
Great. Now I got to create a timpeter.com/Robert Cole.
/Facebook archive. So, but Robert K. Cole or rockcheetah.com. So
great, Robert.
Have a good thing. I will try not to hit the red. I will try not to hit the red user interface button that looks like would just turn me off and not kill the whole show. So
let's see what happens. Let's see.
We'll see. Bye.
We're still here.
We're 2 for 2 today.
Oh man,
2 for 2. Look at this.
This is amazing.
This is awesome. All right. So what else we got on the list? Let's.
I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of what Robert put for potential stuff today just didn't work for me because they were incredibly long articles.
Well, that's true. Yeah,
I didn't have time to read through all of them. Some of them were really good, but maybe we'll push them to next week because, man, some of them were like almost books.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Here, Netflix and YouTube streaming videos about to get faster. It's always getting faster.
Right.
Online booking finally becomes a reality for meeting planners. That was a good one. The Skift article, which was an advertorial for which company?
I'm pulling it up right now. I can't remember.
Meetings IQ.
Yep.
Yes. So, hey, listen, they're at least Skift's getting better about making it obvious that that's not a real article. Like that was an advertorial. It's not as egregious as it was last year and the year before, where it was positioned as, look at this research we did. Who paid for that research?
Right. Exactly.
So I actually think it's interesting. There's a lot of people going after that problem.
Right. So
that online booking of meetings, and to anyone who's not in the group side of the business, or maybe not in the hotel side of the business, because some of my friends watch this and don't understand this, but most hotels and definitely most brands, the second you try to book more than 5 or 9 rooms in a reservation, you're a group. And for some reason, that threshold of that one extra room that you hit requires the most ridiculous process, called an RFP, that you will ever experience.
Right. Well, I think there's 2 pieces to this, right? I mean, there's booking the room block, right, which is one thing, and then there is the meeting planning, right, which is another thing entirely. On the meeting planning one, I'm unbelievably cynical and negative, and I am so bullish about online. I'm so bullish about. I've built my entire career for the last 20 plus years around digital and around online. At the same time, putting together a legit meeting is hard and has a lot of moving pieces and the layers of customization that come into play. I do think there are things hotels can do to make that simpler and get people a little further down the process online. I also think it's true that, booking it like you book a hotel room is still probably a ways in the future, because there's
so
be honest
much. Booking a hotel room, I still think is a hassle too. I mean, discovery is so, and it continues to bother me.
Absolutely. But booking a room block, should be a lot easier than it is today.
But I'll also be honest, the majority of meetings I think could be easily addressed online. I'm not talking.
We're probably disagreeing on the definition of majority, but yeah, sure, there are certainly a fair number that could be made easier.
That needs a room with fairly common elements, right?
The corporate meeting where I need the boardroom, or I need 8 tops, and a room block of 50 rooms or 40 rooms or something like that. Yeah, for sure. Sure.
Yeah, it's not until you're going to get deep into decor and design and advanced menu options.
Weddings are right.
Bar and bat mitzvah.
Exactly.
Those are tough events.
Yep.
That quite honestly, unless you're merchandising like full-on packages, you're not going to easily. There's too many elements in a single event. Meaning, there's too many decisions, and the decisions don't stop until after the event's over.
That's right.
It goes all the way up to the end, and so you can't do that in a single transaction. But I do think if you look at like the majority of meetings, even a corporate retreat. Okay, like if you're talking about the time blocks that people are in a room doing things, I honestly think it's until you get into a care of design that you can address a large amount. Furniture is easy.
Yep.
Like even blank ballroom, what size round do you want? what kind of chair do you want, and what color linens. I mean, those are all easy things to deploy. Food and beverage, I mean, come on.
Oh, for sure.
All of that's easy. Because anything they're giving to you on paper in the RFP form, you're literally going to a software to look.
That's right.
At
That's
how
exactly
to price
right.
it. So okay, just bridge.
So have you seen? I'm sure you've seen Breather.
No, what's Breather?
So Breather is an app, and it is Airbnb for meetings, right? And it's very small meetings, right? It's the 4-person, 6-person, 8-person, conference room.
Nice.
But it's Airbnb for conference rooms. You want a 1-hour block, you want a 2-hour block, you want a 4-hour block, piece of cake.
Wow. I'm surprised Groupon
it's spectacular. It's a fantastic product, and there's no reason hotels can't do this, and there's no reason hotels shouldn't be doing this, right? The other thing is there's a lot to be said for, putting the package online for a wedding or putting the package online for a meeting. True story, completely true story, and I'm well past the statute of limitations on this one, so I can tell this. So when I worked for Leading, we ran a thing called LuxRes, which was an OTA for luxury.
Mm-hmm.
During my time there, we actually had quite a bit of success selling packages online. But these were big packages, right? This is flight, this is rooms, this is often, theater tickets or meals or things like that. And we would put together very exclusive packages, all inclusive, the entire thing, right? And we almost never sold them online. What they did do was generate tremendous demand of people who said, man, I really love that. They would call us up and say, I really love that offer, but can I customize it this way?
You
and what
advertise,
it really was, you got
advertise the idea.
You got it.
Online, understanding that it would inspire people.
You got it. And it drove immense leads.
Yep.
Our conversion rate on those was spectacular. Our call volumes were very high. Our only challenge, the only reason we shut down LuxRes. The only reason we shut down LuxRes was we couldn't scale it without getting funding in a way that the owners of Leading weren't comfortable with, which makes total sense. I mean, I don't think
because then you'd be getting into needing like an architecture like Narrowcast from Navis.
Correct. Right.
Where you can carry what they saw online straight. As you pick up the phone, it's here's what they were looking at.
That's right.
Here's what we know about them. That didn't exist back then.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So I don't think it was a bad decision by any stretch. I also think, I also can point to it and say this worked great. I've got some hotels that I work with where we do that today of here's a package for the wedding. Here's a package for the thing. Here's the pricing. And we don't sell any of them online. Nope. It causes people to pick up the phone and go, man, I love that, but can I make option A this? And can I make option B this? And option C this? And then you go, yes. And they go, great, how much? And you give them a price and they buy it. And it works out really well.
My wife's a professional event planner, and her business is around the idea of a curated party in a box. Meaning you're throwing a party and you want something better than what you can get from Party City. Right. So you go to them. Well, guess what? Almost never is it the box they put together.
That's exactly right.
Instead, what it is an email of, hey, I loved this and this, because they also sell every individual element separately. Okay, but they'll pull it together for you under a theme.
Absolutely.
More often than not, if the person ordering is in Central Florida, they end up skipping the box and going to a full custom party.
Yep.
And those are big bucks, a party in a box, from her business is $200-$300 for 8 to 10 people, and it's everything you need, like from decor to plates and like really nice flatware and all of that. But they will not do a custom event for less than, I think it's less than $2,000 in total spend.
Yeah, sure. Well, that was LuxRes. Yeah. Right. We would put these packages together. We would have the $7,500 option, we would have the $99.95 option, and we would have the $15,000 option. I mean, I'm kind of making, but roughly speaking.
And you never sold anywhere near those price points.
We never sold. I don't think we ever sold one that we advertised once. But every call first of all, the close rate was epically high because they only called when they knew that they wanted,
which meant
and we always sold the package for 20 grand. Right. I mean,
right.
Well above whatever the list price was.
Yeah, you just needed to give them an anchoring of what the price expectation should be and give them what that completely is. Like, what do you get for that? My wife won a trip to Paris a couple of years ago, which I thought was incredibly ironic considering what I do.
Yeah.
Because it was an all expense paid trip to Paris. It was one of those like put your email address here and you could win. She won.
Yeah.
So I immediately called the company fulfilling it and saying, great, I'd like to upgrade the flights. Since I'm not paying for the normal core things, I'd like to upgrade the flights. And I'd like to, do this, and this. Because into Paris how many times, right? So their version of what someone wanted to do in Paris was not mine.
Right.
But like brilliant on the fulfillment company side, because all it was a travel agency, and they're like, yeah, we'd be happy to upgrade your flights, and yeah, we could set you up a driver this day to take you shopping, no problem. And so they got their payment from the company that funded the giveaway, and then they made money off of me by making it what I wanted it to be.
Yeah. And I think that's where, the online booking of meetings and the online booking of events and things like that, might have the wrong focus. The focus maybe shouldn't be around the booking. It should be around how do we merchandise what the options are effectively.
But see, that's the problem, is because it's hard to do, because booking online meetings is hard to do, most hotels have just completely not even tried to merchandise it.
Right.
It's just literally, we have it, you have to call.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's not the best way to drive calls.
Yep. Yeah, it's a complete miss. You know what continues to frustrate me is I'm a family traveler. I book family travel trips.
Yeah, sure.
So you kind of feel like that's an important segment of leisure travel, right?
It absolutely is. Yeah.
I still, in most of my searching now I know hotels too, but I want to make sure I can't find something cooler to do. The majority of my searches result in finding either Oyster content, TripAdvisor content, or blog content.
Right.
Hotels are not creating content to answer the questions people are asking. Want to know what question I'm asking? It's really easy. Best beachfront, family-friendly hotels or resorts.
Yeah, for sure.
Not a single hotel shows up. It's all Oyster, TripAdvisor Top 10, Family Magazine, this, that, and the other thing. As deep as you want to go in that search engine. And then, listen, the hotel's websites aren't even helpful in most cases. Really selling the family-friendly aspect. And it drives me nuts because, my gosh, I spend way more money when I travel with my family than when I travel myself.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, who used to do that very well for the standards of the time? And I want to be fair, my kids have aged out of this segment from that perspective. Actually, when we travel as a family these days, it gets even more complicated because, we might be coming from different places and things along those lines. But
one's a vegan, the other's...
One's a vegan, that's exactly right. Yeah. It's a little more nuts. But who used to do it well for the standards of the time? I don't actually know who the property is flagged as any longer. For a long time, it's in Orlando. For a long time, they were an IHG. Then they were Nickelodeon branded.
Oh, the Family Suites.
Yeah, it's the Family Suites.
They're back to Holiday Inn.
They're back to Holiday Inn.
They spent $30 million to become a Holiday Inn, so that tells you how far down they went.
Wow,
Nickelodeon. Yes.
Oh, yeah. But
that's a great property.
They did a great job, especially for the ages my kids were at the time. My kids were like 7 and 5 or like 8 and 6 or something like that. That was precisely what we needed. And they had, for the time, outstanding content that made it clear and very simple pricing and everything else. Everything was adjoining rooms or
cruise ship
suites.
Their model was great. Cruise ship on land.
Yeah.
The whole shtick of that property.
Yeah.
It's a cruise ship on land.
But it was very, very well done. And it's amazing how now, 14 years later, you can't actually find things as good as that was, let alone as good as it should be for 14 years later.
And this is this, I think, is the challenge. Like, are you taking the time? Like, let's say you just make the decision that you're family friendly.
Yep.
Are you really thinking through what would a family want? What are families looking for? How will families find me? And just saying family friendly, because first of all, everyone says they're family friendly. And I'm sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. So just like, anyone who charges a pet fee says they're pet friendly. No, except pets. There are hotels that do pet friendly that are really pet friendly, and they make a ton of money off of it.
Absolutely.
And then we are pet tolerant.
Right. Well, I used to joke when we traveled. I'm sure I've made this joke here before, but we traveled with my daughter, who is vegan, and all the restaurants that claimed they were vegan friendly, which we came to find out meant they will not laugh at you when you ask for the vegan option. Like, that's as close as they got to vegan.
That's
friendly.
The friendly.
It was like,
that's the friendly.
Sure, it's got milk in it.
Yeah.
No, that's not vegan. Anyway, sorry, you were saying.
Yeah. But it still blows my mind. Like, I went because, I'm planning the summer trips now.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I know what we're doing for our big summer trip. We're going to go up to Woodlock in Howley, Pennsylvania. Which... amazing property. Like, I think it's the number 2 rated family-friendly resort in North America.
Nice.
On TripAdvisor.
Nice.
Yeah. But more importantly, it's a good 15 to 20 degrees cooler than Orlando in August.
Sure.
And, they get down into the 60s at night. And in August, we need that. Like, it's almost 90 next week. We're going to hit almost 90 next week. So it's early. So by August, I'm going to need this.
They're still saying that we might get snow yet here.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
I'm wearing shorts. But the long weekend beach trip was up for planning.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to see what was out there. And so again, I searched, and my gosh, man, like, seriously, it's really easy. If you went through the trouble to design like a kids club and a kids, camp and all of this stuff, maybe put some thought through what are the questions people are asking that's the answer for, and build that content and position that content out there.
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, and you got to plan ahead for this, right? I may have said this on the show a few weeks back, so if I'm repeating myself, I apologize, but it's really relevant to what you're talking about. I got the opportunity to visit the Washington Post not long ago.
You didn't say this, so I don't remember the story.
Blown away, because here you have a business that's very much threatened by digital, right? A lot of people, quote unquote, do what they do, right? Because you can get the news anywhere. And one of the things that blew my mind, absolutely floored me, was they produce about 400 articles a day. Articles, meaning some sort of content package. Some of them are more dynamic. Some of them might have an app or a quiz or a survey attached to it. But 400 pieces of content per day, right? Mm-hmm. Their newsroom, their editorial staff is about 800 people.
Wow.
Which means that it basically takes 2 full-time equivalents a full day every day to produce one piece of content.
Yep.
And we're in the content business, whether we want to be or not, and nobody's dedicating that kind of resource to it.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean you have to have 2 full-time people if you want to put out a piece of content every time. It means you have to assume there's 2 person days worth of work there. Right. And if you're giving these folks an hour a day to work on it, then you need to plan for the fact that that's going to take you 16 days to get it done, and build that into your plan.
Right. And do it. Because first of all, the shelf life on that type of content is
forever.
Yeah.
Right, for sure.
Fundamental value propositions of your property. You can invest in content on that. It's good. Yeah, it'll stay.
I've said many times, invest in the painting, not the frame, when we think about the website, right? Don't worry about so much about what the website looks like. For as much as, we joke about my blog and things along those lines, I bring it up for a reason. 40% of the traffic to my site is people coming in through search who found content that speaks to answering a question that they have. 70% of the people who come to my site have never been there before, right?
Because you're answering questions they're asking.
I'm answering questions and solving their problem. And a fair number of those folks are turning into leads, and a fair number of those folks are turning into business. And you absolutely can do the same thing with hotels. We've got example after example after example where that's true.
Yeah.
Because that just works.
Yeah.
So you're family friendly. Let people know that.
And
Take
how.
the time. And
how. About
how.
How you're family friendly.
Right.
Spend some time on that, because there's different, what families are you friendly for?
That's right.
What are the age ranges? Because, man, I'll tell you, if you got a kid under 6.
Oh, yeah, that's a very different need.
Most resorts are not family friendly. They offer almost no amenities for kids under 6. And then it gets even rarer, kids under 3.
Sure.
But here's the thing. Like, I've been traveling with my children since they were, allowed to go to an airport.
Absolutely.
Because I like to travel.
Yeah.
And actually, it's easier to travel with the smaller package child than it is the medium package child.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
It's one of those things that this time of year continues to come up for me where I'm just like, man, come on, folks. How much are you paying Oyster? Why is Oyster got such amazing content and knows what questions people are asking, obviously. Because when I do any type of travel question, they're always on first page.
Well, but I mean, if you are a hotel, right, your concierge or your front desk person or your reservation agents know the questions people ask them every day. Start with answering those questions on your website. This isn't hard, right?
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Well, I tell you what, Ed, we are coming up on 1 o'clock.
We are, and I don't think we're going to see a Dan Waxman.
I don't think so as well. So
Dan, sorry we didn't have time to get to you this week. Stuart, Holly, Darlene, Valin, sorry we didn't get a chance to get to any of you. Tim, if people want to find out more about you and your blogginess, where should they?
TimPeter.com is the hub for everything. You can also find me on Twitter at TCPeter, but TimPeter.com will connect you everywhere you want to go.
And for those of you who were going to waste time going to the National Archive, let me save you some of that effort. Tim has done a great job of making all of that content available and more on TimPeter.com.
And Ed, if they want to find out about you and Flip2 and all the fun stuff that you do, where can they find you?
Well, you can learn about Flip2 by going to flip.to. You can learn about me by going to pretty much any social network and typing in my name, Edward StOnge.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching.
Thanks so much. Hope you all have a great holiday weekend, and we'll see you here next week.
See you then.